I'll never forget the way the ground started to vibrate before I even saw them. At first I thought it was thunder rolling in from the hills, that low, distant rumble you feel through the porch boards. But when I stepped outside with my coffee, I saw 10 charter buses crawling up my gravel approach like a slow-motion invasion, diesel smoke hanging in the crisp morning air, headlights cutting through the mist over my pasture. 10. Full-size, tour bus style. And they weren't stopping at the county road, they were stopping at my gate. Doors hissed open in a weird little chorus, and then the chaos spilled out. Families with coolers, kids with inflatable floats, teenagers hauling Bluetooth speakers, retirees dragging folding chairs like they were headed to a football tailgate, and right above it all, strapped to 2 poles like it belonged there, a massive vinyl banner that read, Cedar Ridge HOA Summer Blowout. Thanks to our generous host. I stood there on my porch in work boots and a faded hoodie, coffee going cold in my hand, thinking, who in the world told these people I was hosting anything except my goats and my own peace? Then I saw her. Neon fuchsia blazer, white sneakers that had never seen a day of mud, clipboard tucked like a weapon, megaphone in hand, perched on the first bus step like she was about to announce a parade. Her name was Delaney Frost, president of the Cedar Ridge HOA, and she'd been trying for months to pull my land into her little kingdom across the road. What she didn't know was my gate wasn't just for show. It was steel, electronic, and tied to my phone. One press, and it locked like a bank vault. That morning, she didn't just bring 10 buses of strangers onto my property. She marched them straight into the cleanest consequences I'd ever set up. My name's Nolan Pierce. I live outside a small town in western North Carolina, the kind of place where people still stop for tractors and everybody knows which dog belongs to which porch. My property's not huge, about 28 acres, mostly pasture and tree line, a barn I built with my brother 10 years ago, and a long gravel lane that runs from the county road up to my house. I raise goats, not as a cute hobby, but because they pay for themselves if you do it right, and because I like the quiet rhythm of it. My land is not part of any HOA. Never has been. When the developer built Cedar Ridge across the road, they carved up a big parcel into tidy lots, planted ornamental trees, installed matching mailboxes, the whole suburban package. Then the HOA formed, and like always, someone decided they weren't just running their neighborhood, they were running the world. Enter Delaney. It started small, like it always does. A letter in my mailbox about my barn being an unapproved color. Another one about livestock noise disruption, as if goats are supposed to whisper. One day she walked up to my fence line with a smile and told me she'd noticed my old truck parked near the back pasture, and that Cedar Ridge preferred vehicles not be visible from common areas. I just stared at her. Ma'am, I said, you're standing on the wrong side of the universe if you think you get to prefer anything about what I do on my land. She laughed like it was a joke, but her eyes didn't. Then the flyers started showing up. I first saw one at the gas station bulletin board, bright colors, cheerful fonts, little cartoon sun at the top. Cedar Ridge HOA Summer Blowout, Community Festival, shuttles provided. And there it was, bold as day, a map with a green highlighted area labeled Community Meadow. Except the green highlight was my pasture. My pasture. The one with the private property, no trespassing sign on the gate. The one that's fenced because goats don't care about your festival schedule. I pulled a flyer down and just stood there, reading it twice like maybe my brain was glitching. There were even activity zones drawn in: volleyball, picnic lawn, kids' games, vendor row, and a scenic trail that cut along my tree line like it was a park. I knew right then Delaney wasn't bluffing anymore. She wasn't trying to annoy me into joining the HOA. She was trying to create a new reality by sheer confidence and printed paper. Like if she acted like my land was theirs long enough, the universe would just shrug and hand it over. So I prepared. Not with anger, not with threats, just with good old-fashioned planning. I called my buddy Marcus, who installs security systems for farms and small businesses. He came out, looked at my gate, and said, "You want real control, or hope they respect the sign control." I told him I wanted real control. We reinforced the hinges, replaced the latch with an electric deadbolt, installed a keypad and a remote receiver, synced it to my phone, and aimed 2 cameras down the lane with full coverage of the gate line. Then we set up a few more cameras around the pasture because if Delaney was bold enough to print flyers, she was bold enough to claim I invited them and then blame me when it went sideways. I wasn't going to play the he said she said game. I wanted clean footage, timestamps, and angles. 2 weeks later, that morning arrived. 10 buses. Hundreds of people. My stomach did this slow drop when I realized how many strangers were about to step onto my grass. Not because they were malicious, but because they trusted a woman in a blazer with a megaphone. And that was the part that stung the most. Delaney wasn't just trespassing. She was turning me into the villain of a story she wrote for them. I walked down my lane slow, coffee in hand, boots crunching gravel, trying to read faces. Some people smiled and waved like I was the host of a family reunion. A few looked uneasy, like their instincts were whispering, "This doesn't feel right." One teenage kid was already filming, phone up, narrating to his friends like it was a reality show. Delaney, of course, was in her element. She climbed onto the first bus step, raised her megaphone, and shouted, "Welcome, Cedar Ridge. Today we take back our community green space from selfishness." Selfishness. That word was a knife twist, because I hadn't taken anything from anyone. I just refused to hand my property over to the nearest loud committee. At 8:58, she was directing people to set up tables near my oak trees. At 8:59, kids were chasing my goats, laughing, thinking it was cute. My goats didn't think it was cute. They scattered toward the far fence like tiny horn missiles. Delaney was smiling so wide her cheeks looked sore. She turned and gestured toward my house like I was about to come out with a welcome speech. I glanced at my phone. My thumb hovered over the lock icon. And right then, standing in the crowd, I spotted someone I recognized. A county zoning clerk named Everett Lane. I'd met him once when I was pulling permits for a small barn extension. Everett looked like he wished he could melt into the grass. Our eyes met, and he gave me the smallest, saddest nod, the kind that says, "Yeah, she lied to everybody, and now we're all standing in it." At exactly 9 o'clock, I tapped the screen. The sound wasn't loud, but it was final. A low metallic thunk. Then the gate motors pulled the steel arms closed with a heavy groan. Clank. And the red light on the keypad blinked like a heartbeat. The last bus had just rolled through, so now all 10 buses were inside my entrance, parked like a wall of metal between these people and the county road. Confusion moved through the crowd like a wind gust. Heads turned. Parents paused mid-unpack. Bus drivers stepped down and stared at the gate like it had personally insulted them. Delaney's megaphone squealed with feedback as she froze, then snapped around. "What is going on?" she barked, voice pitched higher than before. I leaned against a fence post and took a slow sip of coffee, then raised my voice just enough to carry. "Morning, folks. You're on private property. This is not an HOA park. Nobody here has permission to be on this land." It was like I dropped a rock into a pond. The ripples were immediate. People started murmuring, looking at the banner, looking at the gate, looking back at Delaney. You could see the moment some of them realized they'd been dragged into something ugly. Delaney lifted her megaphone like she could shout the truth into changing. "Do not listen to him," she yelled. "This is community green space. He's refusing to cooperate with neighborhood improvements." Neighborhood improvements. On my pasture. A burly bus driver in a sweat-stained cap approached me, face tight, eyes darting. "Sir," he said quietly. "The lady told us this was a public event. We were hired to bring them here." I nodded once. "Then you should probably keep those buses parked and wait. Sheriff's on the way." His eyes widened. "Sheriff?" I didn't smile. "Sheriff." That's when the phones really went up. Teenagers started filming like they'd been waiting for this moment their whole lives. Somebody yelled, "This is going to be viral." A mom tugged her kids close and whispered, "Don't touch anything." A couple older men looked at the banner and muttered, "You gotta be kidding me." And Delaney marched toward me, heels sinking into my gravel like the land itself wanted her to slow down. Her face was bright red under all that makeup, not from heat yet, but from the first crack of losing control. "You are trapping us," she hissed, not into the megaphone now, just at me, close enough I could smell the fruity perfume. "You can't hold people here." I kept my tone even. "I didn't trap anybody. I closed my gate. You brought 10 buses of people onto land you do not own." She jabbed her clipboard toward the pasture. "We have rights. The HOA designated this as shared space." I tilted my head. "Show me the deed." That line hit her like a slap, because it's the one thing folks like her rarely have. Facts. They have energy, they have confidence, they have a committee vote and a Facebook post, but they don't have legal ownership. Delaney's eyes flicked around, searching for backup. She tried to rally the crowd, shouting about community and togetherness, but the crowd was starting to cook in the sun. Kids got cranky. Parents got annoyed. People started realizing they'd been told to bring coolers and chairs to someone else's yard like it was normal. Then, like a cherry on top, my drones lifted off. Not dramatic war drones, just small security ones that Marcus had set to activate if motion sensors detected anyone near the barn or far fence. For little black dots rose into the air, their camera lenses blinking. Teenagers cheered. Adults looked uncomfortable. Delaney's face twisted like she'd bitten into a lemon. "This is harassment," she shouted. "He's filming us." I raised my phone and turned the screen toward the nearest group. "Yep, for everyone's safety, and because I'm not letting anybody rewrite what happened here." That's when Everett, the zoning clerk, finally stood up and spoke loud enough for others to hear. "This isn't public land," he said, voice tight. "She knows that. I told her. If you've ever watched a balloon pop in slow motion, you know the look." That's what Delaney's confidence did right then. The crowd didn't explode into anger at me. They exploded into questions at her. "Delaney, what do you mean it isn't public? We paid for a shuttle fee. You told us this was approved." Someone waved the flyer in the air like a receipt. "You printed a map of his property." Delaney tried to regain control, megaphone up, voice booming, but it cracked with strain. And the heat kept rising. A couple guys tried to push a picnic bench against the gate like they could brute force their way out. The steel didn't budge. One bus driver yelled, "Stop that. You'll get arrested." And then, right on schedule, sirens started to wail in the distance. The moment people heard that sound, the energy shifted again. Relief for some, panic for others. Delaney's posture stiffened like she was about to perform her final act. She sprinted toward the gate, waving her arms, and when the first patrol car rolled up outside, dust swirling around its tires, she screamed, "Officer! He's holding us hostage." Sheriff Knox Harrelson stepped out slow. Late 50s. Tall. The kind of calm that makes loud people look foolish without him doing anything at all. He scanned the buses, the crowd, the banner, the locked gate, then looked at Delaney like she was a math problem he didn't want to solve. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "why are all these folks on his land?" Delaney opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "This is community space," she said, voice wobbling. "He's being uncooperative." Sheriff Knox turned to me. "Nolan, you got paperwork." I handed him the folder I'd carried down: deed, survey map, tax record printout, and a letter from the county confirming my parcel isn't in any HOA boundary. He flipped through it, nodded once, then turned back to Delaney. "This is private property," he said. "You brought hundreds of people onto land you don't own. That's trespassing. If money changed hands for this event, we're also talking about fraud." You could hear the crowd inhale like one big lung. Delaney's face went pale. People started shouting. "We paid. She told us it was approved. My kids have been out here for an hour." Phones tilted toward Delaney like spotlights. One teenager laughed and said, "Bro, she's cooked." Sheriff Knox motioned for another deputy to start directing people back onto buses, calm and orderly. "We're going to open the gate," he announced, "and these buses will leave one at a time. Nobody touches anything else. And you, ma'am," he nodded at Delaney, "you're coming with me to answer some questions." Delaney snapped, "You can't do this. I'm the HOA president." Sheriff Knox didn't even blink. "Not on his land, you're not. I swear to you." The line felt like the air got lighter. Bus by bus, the festival died. Chairs folded. Coolers slammed shut. Kids got dragged back up bus steps whining. Adults muttered apologies as they passed me, some embarrassed, some furious, but most just stunned they'd been used as props. And every time a bus rumbled past Delaney, people leaned out windows and shouted things like, "You lied to us," and "Refund my money," and my personal favorite, "Nice blazer, dictator." When the last bus rolled out and the gate stood open, Delaney was still there, clipboard limp at her side, looking like her whole identity had just been peeled off in front of everyone. She glared at me and hissed, "This isn't over." I met her eyes, calm as I could be. "Delaney, you did this to yourself." "I just locked my gate." Sheriff Knox guided her toward a patrol car. She tried to straighten her blazer like it could restore her dignity. It didn't. The gate closed again behind them with that same final clank. And when the dust settled, my pasture was quiet again except for my goats returning from the far fence, bells tinkling like nothing had happened, like humans were just another weird weather event passing through. Now here's the part one want you to argue about in the comments. Because people love to pretend this stuff is simple. Was I too harsh for locking the gate and letting the sheriff handle it? Or was it the cleanest, safest way to stop a mass trespass without turning it into a shouting match? Because I didn't touch anyone. I didn't threaten anyone. I didn't detain anyone. I closed a gate on my own property and waited for law enforcement to sort out the mess someone else created. But I know how this world is. Some folks think you should always be the bigger person, even when someone is trying to steal your peace with a megaphone. So tell me what you think. If you were in my boots, would you have opened the gate immediately and let them scatter? Or would you have done exactly what I did, locked it, documented everything, and made the truth show up with sirens? And if you've ever dealt with an HOA tyrant, a boss, a neighbor, a community leader who tried to bully you into surrendering something that was yours, I want to hear how you handled it. Drop your story below and don't hold back. Hit subscribe if you want more real-life boundary wars, because next time I'll tell you what Delaney tried after this, when she decided my creek impacted neighborhood aesthetics and sent a consultant to test my water like she owned the rainfall. Yeah, it got worse, and it got messy, and people are still split on who was right.